That night I learned that one single wedding can destroy two entire families in less than 10 minutes. My name is Frida Jackson. 5 years ago I was 55, a regular mother of three. Living in a small house, I cleaned myself every Saturday. My oldest son Toto was 28, quiet, hardworking. The kind of boy who still called me every night to say goodnight, no matter how tired he was. When he came home one freezing January evening with snowflakes in his hair and the biggest smile I had ever seen, he said the words every mother dreams of. Mom, I met someone. Her name was Sophia Sterling. She was finishing her architecture degree, had long dark hair, soft eyes, and the sweetest voice. She made my son laugh in a way I hadn't heard since he was little. I was over the moon. Until he added, her dad owns Sterling and Associates, the big construction company. Something inside me twisted. I couldn't explain it. Just a tiny knot in my stomach. I told myself I was being silly. Mothers want their children happy, right? The first time Sophia came for dinner, she brought homemade chicken and rice, hugged me at the door, and said, "Mrs. Jackson, thank you for raising the most honest man I've ever met." I liked her instantly. We talked for hours about her dream of designing affordable, beautiful homes for regular families. But when the conversation turned to her father, her smile faded. She moved food around her plate and whispered, "Dad is complicated. He judges people by money. I haven't even told him we're dating yet." My knot tightened, but I smiled and said, "Love finds a way, honey." Weeks turned into months. Toto was glowing. He came home singing. He talked about her, non-stop. "Mom, Sophia doesn't care that I drive a 10-year-old car. She says the only thing that matters is building a life together." I nodded and smiled, but that knot never went away. Then one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. I was having coffee at the Southern Star Cafe downtown when I looked out the window and saw Humphrey Sterling, in broad daylight, kissing a young woman on the mouth while two little kids pulled at his jacket screaming, "Daddy, push us on the swings." My cup almost slipped from my hand. I paid, walked to my car on shaky legs, sat behind the wheel, and stared at nothing for 20 minutes. That night I told myself, maybe I imagined it. Rich men have nieces, cousins, friends, right? But the next morning, I did something I never thought I would do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Roy Mendez. Tiny office above a dry cleaner that smelled of detergent and old coffee. He wore thick glasses and a short-sleeve shirt and never smiled once. I slid a photo of Humphrey across the desk and said, "I think he has another family. I need to know before my son marries into this." Roy didn't judge. He just asked questions, took notes, and said, "1 week, $5,000 plus expenses." I wrote the check with shaking hands. Every penny I had saved for a cruise with my sisters. Worth it. 7 days later, Roy called. "Mrs. Jackson, you need to come in." I drove so fast, I almost got a ticket. When I walked into that office, he didn't say hello. He just turned his computer screen toward me and opened a folder thicker than a phone book. Humphrey Sterling had a second family. Veronica Campos, 32, accountant at Sterling and Associates. 2 children, a boy, 7, and a girl, 5. Registered only under her last name, company money paid their rent, private school, ballet lessons, Disney vacations, everything. Bank statements, wire transfers, corporate credit card receipts, all there in black and white. Then Roy opened the second folder and my blood turned to ice. Sterling and Associates was drowning in $12 million of debt. Unpaid suppliers, lawsuits, repossessed equipment. 2 years earlier, Humphrey won a $25 million government contract to build 120 affordable homes for low-income families. He built 40, he pocketed the rest. 80 families had paid deposits, waited years, and now lived in apartments. Because their dream homes never came, there were already 2 criminal complaints and an active anti-corruption bureau investigation. Roy closed the folder and said quietly, "This man is 6 months from federal prison, maybe less." I drove home in a daze. The folder sat on the passenger seat like a loaded gun. That night, I hid it at the bottom of my closet, under old blankets, and cried until dawn. What was I supposed to do? Tell my son, and watch his heart break before the wedding? Tell Sophia and destroy the image of the father she adored? Stay quiet and let my boy marry into a family built on lies that would explode the second the news broke? I chose to wait. I smiled at engagement parties. I helped pick out flowers. I danced with Toto at the rehearsal dinner while Humphrey bragged about his new 500 home project in Houston, and I wanted to scream, with what money? Every night I took the folder out, stared at the photos of those little kids calling him daddy, read the bank transfers again, and put it back. I was living on coffee and prayer. 2 weeks before the wedding, Sophia showed up at my house in tears. Dad says Toto isn't good enough. He wants to control everything. Guest list, venue, menu. He threatened to pull the funding if we don't do it his way. I held her while she cried and said, "Sweetheart, this wedding is yours and Toto's, not his. If you love my son, fight for him." She looked up with red eyes and whispered, "You're the mom I always wished I had." That sentence broke me. The night before the wedding, Toto came over for dinner. He was nervous, excited, bouncing his knee under the table. "Mom, tomorrow I marry the love of my life." I served him chicken, his favorite since he was 5, and forced a smile while the envelopes in my purse felt like bricks. He left at 10, hugging me so tight I could feel his heart racing. After he drove away, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at those 3 envelopes until 3 a.m. One for Toto, one for Sophia, one for Mrs. Sterling. I almost burned them in the sink. Then I remembered Humphrey's voice from the rehearsal dinner, cold and smug. "Remember who's in charge here?" I slid the envelopes back into my purse and whispered, "Not anymore." Wedding day. The church smelled of lilies and hope. Sophia walked down the aisle like an angel. Toto's eyes filled with tears when he saw her. I sat in the 3rd row, clutching my purse and praying, "Please God, let him behave." The ceremony was perfect. Vows, rings, kiss, applause. I thought maybe, just maybe, we had dodged the bullet. Then came the reception at the country club. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, 200 guests in designer clothes. Our little family looked out of place. But love doesn't need money to shine. Dinner was delicious. Speeches were sweet. Then the MC announced, "And now, a few words from the father of the bride, Mr. Humphrey Sterling." He took the stage like a king, gold watch flashing, champagne flute raised. He started nice. "My Princess Sophia, smart, beautiful, stubborn as her mother." Polite laughter. Then he turned to my son with that snake smile and said, "She could have had anyone, but she insisted on marrying this young man." Nervous chuckles. He paused for effect, looked Toto dead in the eye, and finished, "That boy is an idiot." The room roared. Some people clapped, like it was a joke. My son went white. His shoulders folded inward. Sophia grabbed his hand, horrified. Mrs. Sterling stared at her plate, and something inside me died and came back to life at the same time. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I stood, walked straight to the stage in my simple navy dress and low heels, and took the microphone out of Humphrey Sterling's hand. The hall went dead silent. 200 faces stared. He tried to laugh it off. "Mrs. Jackson, please." I stepped around him and faced the room. "My name is Frida Jackson, mother of the groom. A minute ago, Mr. Sterling called my son an idiot on his wedding day in front of all of you. Let me tell you who the real idiot is, Humphrey. Sterling has 2 families. His wife Eleanor is sitting right there, and 10 miles away, his secret second family, Veronica Campos, and their 2 children, a boy of 7 and a girl of 5, live in an apartment he pays for with money he stole from his own company. Here are the photos. Here are the bank transfers. Here are the school payment receipts. 2 years ago he took $25 million from the government to build 120 homes for low-income families. He built 40. He stole the rest. 80 families lost their life savings, waiting for houses that will never exist. His company owes $12 million. Employees haven't been paid in months. The Anti-Corruption Bureau is coming. He will be wearing handcuffs. Before the year is out, you called my son an idiot. My son is honest. My son works 80-hour weeks to pay his bills. My son loves your daughter with every beat of his heart. You are the liar. You are the thief. You are the fraud. Tonight, the lies end. I opened my purse, pulled out the folders, and let hundreds of copies rain onto the tables. Photos, bank statements, court filings, everything. The room turned into pure chaos. Mrs. Sterling screamed and collapsed. Sophia stood frozen, staring at her father like he was a stranger. Guests shouted, filmed, passed papers. Humphrey lunged for the mic, yelling, "She's lying. She's jealous." I stepped aside and let the evidence speak. He ran out of his daughter's wedding without a word. The coward showed his true colors at last. There was no first dance, no cake cutting, just 200 people watching 2 families collapse in real time. My son looked at me like I had murdered his future. He walked out without saying goodbye. He didn't speak to me for 3 months. 3 whole months of silence that felt like death. I cried every night until my pillow was soaked. I left voicemails he never answered. I drove to his apartment and sat in the parking lot for hours. Nothing. Then one rainy October, the coward showed his true colors at last. There was no first dance, no cake cutting. Just 200 people watching two families collapse in real time. My son looked at me like I had murdered his future. He walked out without saying goodbye. He didn't speak to me for 3 months. 3 whole months of silence that felt like death. I cried every night until my pillow was soaked. I left voicemails, he never answered. I drove to his apartment and sat in the parking lot for hours. Nothing. Then one rainy October afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened it, and there stood Toto and Sophia, both crying. My son dropped to his knees right there on my porch and sobbed. "Mom, you saved my life. You saved both of us." They told me everything that happened after that night. Sophia had met her half-siblings. Veronica never knew Humphrey was married. He had lied to everyone. Mrs. Sterling filed for divorce the next morning and never looked back. 8 weeks later, Humphrey was arrested on live television, handcuffed outside his office. He was sentenced to 12 years. He died alone in prison from diabetes complications. Only Sophia visited once, to look him in the eye and say, "I forgive you, not for you, but so I can live." Toto and Sophia got married again 6 months later in a tiny chapel with 30 real loved ones. No country club, no gold watches, just love, tears, and truth. They had a son they named Michael, now 5 years old, with his daddy's eyes and his mommy's smile, and a daughter on the way. They asked me what I thought of the name Frida. I cried so hard I couldn't speak. 5 years have passed. I am 60 now. I rock my grandbabies to sleep, knowing I made the hardest choice a mother can ever make. I chose my child's dignity over a perfect day. Sometimes love means smiling and staying quiet. Sometimes, love means taking the microphone and burning every lie to the ground so your child can walk in sunlight instead of shadows. So I ask you, from the deepest part of my heart, if someone humiliated your son or daughter on their wedding day in front of hundreds of people, if you knew the truth that could protect them forever, would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you take the mic and defend them with everything you have? That is my story. An ordinary mother who did something the world called cruel, and my children call the greatest act of love they ever received. Thank you for listening. If this touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear that truth is always worth it, even when it hurts. This is Frida Jackson, signing off with a full heart and eyes full of tears of joy. Never forget, silence protects the liar, truth protects the innocent, and sets the next generation free. 5 years have passed since that night. I am 60 now. My hair has more silver than black. My hands have new lines from rocking babies to sleep, and my heart is finally at peace. Toto and Sophia got married again 6 months after the chaos. Not in a country club. Not with 200 fake smiles. Just 30 real people in an old downtown chapel that smelled of candle wax and old wood. Sophia wore a simple lace dress she bought off the rack. Toto wore the same navy suit, now patched at the elbow because he refused to buy a new one. I walked my son down the aisle this time. When the priest asked who gives this man, I answered loud and clear, his mother does, and she always will. There was no string quartet. Just Toto's cousin playing an old jazz standard on a beat-up guitar. When they kissed, everybody cried, not polite tears, but ugly, healing, freeing tears. We ate barbecue in the church basement afterwards. Paper plates, sweet tea, laughter that echoed off cinder block walls. It was the most beautiful wedding I've ever been to, because not a single word spoken that day was a lie. 9 months later, Michael was born. I was in the delivery room. Sophia squeezed my hand so hard I still have the bruise mark in my memory. When the nurse placed that tiny, red-faced boy in my arms, he looked up at me with Toto's exact eyes and let out the loudest cry I'd ever heard. I whispered to him, "Welcome to a family that will always tell you the truth, little one, even when it hurts." Mrs. Sterling Eleanor was there too. She had lost 30 pounds, cut her hair short, and started a tiny craft shop downtown. She walked in wearing jeans and a smile I had never seen on her before. When Michael grabbed her finger, she started sobbing and said, "I spent 30 years being Mrs. Humphrey Sterling. Today, I just want to be Grandma Ellie." We hugged in that hospital room like two women who had survived the same war. Sophia finished her master's degree while working part-time and raising Michael. She now designs eco-friendly, truly affordable homes, the kind her father promised and never delivered. Every house she finishes, she plants a small tree in the front yard and hangs a plaque that reads, Built on truth, never on lies. Toto got promoted to project manager. He still drives that same 10-year-old car. Some nights he comes home covered in sawdust, kisses Sophia, lifts Michael in the air until the boy screeches with laughter, and then sits at my kitchen table for coffee like he did when he was 15. He never brings up the 3 months of silence anymore. But sometimes, out of nowhere, he'll reach across the table, squeeze my hand and say, "I understand now, Mom, I really do." 2 years ago, Martha Hernandez, one of the families who lost their life savings to Humphrey's scam, walked into my grocery store. She recognized me from the news. She didn't shout or cry. She just opened her arms and said, "Because of you, we got some of our money back. My husband and I built our house with our own hands. It's small, but it's ours. Thank you for giving us the courage to fight." We stood between the cereal aisle and the canned beans, hugging and crying, while strangers walked around us smiling. Last year, on Michael's 4th birthday, he asked the question every grandchild eventually asks, "Grandma, why don't I have another grandpa like my friends do?" The room went quiet. Sophia looked at me, nodded, and I knelt down so we were eye to eye. "Because your other grandpa made some very bad choices, sweetheart. He hurt a lot of people. But the good news is you have Grandpa Ellie now, and you have me, and you have your daddy who will never, ever lie to you. That's what makes a real family, not blood, but truth and love." Michael thought about it for 5 whole seconds, an eternity in 4-year-old time, then threw his arms around my neck and said, "Then we have the best family in the world." And just like that, the circle closed. 3 months ago, Sophia called me, voice shaking with happy tears. "Mom, it's a girl, and we want to name her Frida." I dropped the phone. I sat on my kitchen floor and cried so hard I scared the neighbor's dog. They named her Frida Grace Jackson. She was born last week. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, with Sophia's nose and a tiny birthmark on her left hand shaped exactly like a microphone. I swear it's true. Sometimes, very late at night when the house is quiet, I take out the journal I started the week after the wedding. The first entry is only 1 line. "Today I learned that love can mean destroying a moment to save a lifetime." The last page, written yesterday, says this: "To my granddaughter Frida, and to every woman who will ever read these words. You will face days when staying silent feels like the kindest choice. When speaking up will cost you friends, family, maybe even love. When the easiest thing is to smile, nod, and swallow the truth like broken glass. I am 60 years old and I have learned one thing with absolute certainty. Silence never protects the innocent. It only gives the lie more time to grow roots. So when your moment comes, and it will come, when someone you love is being hurt, when someone is building their happiness on someone else's pain, when the room is laughing and your child is shrinking, stand up, take the mic, speak the truth, even if your voice shakes, because the truth is heavy, yes, but lies are what truly crush us." I took the mic once. It cost me a wedding. It cost me 3 months of my son's voice. It cost me the approval of people who never really knew me, but it gave me back my son's trust. It gave Sophia her freedom. It gave Eleanor her life back. It gave 80 families a chance to fight. It gave my grandchildren a legacy of courage instead of cowardice, and it gave me peace. So yes, little Frida. And yes, you who are reading this right now, be brave enough to be the villain in someone else's story if it means you get to be the hero in the only story that matters. The story your children and grandchildren will tell about the day their grandmother refused to let lies win. That is my legacy. A cracked microphone, a stack of yellowed documents, and 2 beautiful children who will grow up knowing that love sometimes sounds like 7 minutes of pure chaos, but it always, always leads to light. I am Frida Jackson. I took the mic, and I would do it again 1,000 times. I close the journal, turn off the light, and for the first time in years, I sleep without dreaming of that night. Because the nightmare is over. And the truth is finally free.